All right, let's get this going. What's up, everyone? We are doing NA Power Rankings right before the RLCS. Since there hasn't been one yet for the community, and this is just my own personal opinion on these teams. It is results heavy, but there is some eye test involved as well with all these teams. Basically, I'm doing top 12 because that's what you'll probably see in a bracket when you go to the RLCS. These are the teams that are most likely to be in those matchups in the lower bracket or the winner's bracket. So that's why we're doing 12 today, because 8 make it, but you will see 12 on stream. So these are the 12 I think will make it. Of course, we don't know the brackets yet, so we'll see how that goes. People are getting very excited about their text chat over here. So we're going to be talking to Twitch chat as well throughout. And yeah, let's just get right into it. Basically, what I was going off of was there's 5, I guess, major tournaments of the minors. I guess it's like 5 minor tournaments that were pretty big. There was Take the Shot January and February. There's Rocket Royale. There was Astro January and February. I do look at other results, but for the most part, I'm going to be focusing on talking about these results. And for the bottom teams, you're going to see that some of these guys actually, like, their results in the weeklies help too, but I didn't write down every single one of those because that's a lot to write down. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to start off with number 12. And number 12, we have Nova coming in. These guys basically are destroying the weeklies for the most part. And they're destroying the weeklies because none of the teams higher than them are playing in them. They're playing in a lot of these low ball weeklies, but at the same time, that's actually really good practice for making sure that you can make it all the way to the end of the lower bracket. So I think we will see Nova. They've been very consistent on who they're beaten throughout all of these lower tournaments. They do have a few losses here or there, but for the most part, they're taking care of business down there. The problem is they just can't beat any of these top teams. They didn't play Take the Shots either month, maybe February, but I didn't see it. And then we have Rocket Royale. They finished in 9th place. They beat Soar 4-2 across 2 different sets, and then they lose to Denial 0-3, and then they lose to G2 1-2, which G2 was giving away a lot of games during that Rocket Royale. So not the greatest performance, but they almost squeaked it out and made it into groups. They are beating teams like Soar. They beat in the Astro tournament. They beat Heroes of Tomorrow. They lose to Iris, and Iris wound up winning the whole thing. So who knows? Maybe Nova was the second best team there. You never know. But Nova on the weeklies, like, I don't have all their results, but they just time and time again are winning these games. And of course, if you don't know who's on Nova, it is Double, Prime Thunder, and Pyre. So 3 notable players that we've seen around a lot. Double has been around subbing for teams here or there. He used to be with Orange Creamsicle way back in the day during the Pro League. Prime Thunder was too young to start in the first RLCS. He came in, I think, 12th was the place. It was the round right before the lower brackets finals on stream. They lost there with, I believe it was Lucky Bounce at the time. And then Pyre, he's been around. He streams a lot. You've probably seen him around. But they're doing pretty well. They've won the SPL weeklies, Boost Legacy, ESLs, another SPL weekly, a Mocket weekly. So they're doing pretty decent job at least beating those teams near the bottom. Now let's see if they can continue that. And then I just don't see them beating any of these top teams. They don't have a ton of games against these top teams, which will actually hurt them. But at the same time, maybe it could help them if the other team hasn't seen them. And all you have to do is play well once against one of these top teams, and you have a chance to make it in. So we'll see how they do there. And yeah, we're going to move on. We're going to do this pretty quickly. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to add me in chat. That'll probably be the best way to hit me up. So, number 11. I'm just kind of scrolling around here, so don't mind me, because I can't have all my notes up at the same time. We have Eggplant coming in at number 11. Now, this is predominantly because of their Rocket Royale run. They did pretty well there, and that was pretty recent. So, it was actually a good showing from them. They could easily have dropped out. I could have had them even lower than this, but I wanted to give them a little bit of credit for their Rocket Royale run. And yeah, so Take the Shot in February. They did not qualify. They lost to Genesis 3-1, and they lost to Freestylers in Disguise 0-2. That was the loaded bracket in the qualifiers for Take the Shot February. And so you can't expect them to make it, but a team like Freestylers in Disguise, like that's a team that you want to beat to start moving up these rankings. And they kind of just lose to Freestylers all the time. Like in Rocket Royale, they lost to them also 2-1. And Denial, they lost to 3-1. Take Three, they beat 2-1 though, which is a big win. And then Effable, which is probably just outside my list, probably around 13-14. They lost to them in 2 different sets, 2-4. So they had some good results in that Rocket Royale. They did make it out as first in their group, so I wanted to give them a little bit of credit for that. But I could easily see them dropping down further, and we'll go over to their roster and see what other results they have on here. But they're also playing in weeklies here or there, but not as much. They have been playing against these bigger teams more often than not, which is nice, and we'll see if that practice pays off for them. Prime Thunder was playing with them too for a while, and then he swapped over to the team right below him, Nova. And yeah, so they've been doing pretty well with Birdman, and I don't know how to say this name, but I think it's like a Pepiopi, I think. But of course, Eggplant, the best logo in the game. They don't even need a real logo because they just have the beautiful Eggplant, which is very easy. So that's one way to make a team. Like if you want to go far and you don't want to pay for a logo, boom, just go after some fruits and veggies. Good work. Anyway, so we got Eggplant at number 11. Again, we'll see if they can shake some things up. They did beat Take Three, which is one of those teams that they might play in the round before the winter final. So that could help them a ton if they can pull off one of those upsets. But they're one of those teams that at least has cracked into that a top echelon teams and taken one of them down. It was only a 3-game set, so there's that. But they have a chance, and that's why I have them at number 11. So let's continue. Number 10. So we're getting into the nitty gritty, but 10 is still not a spot that you want to be in because top 8 obviously makes RLCS. So these would still be on the lower bracket losers if it all went the same way, and who knows what the bracket looks like. So number 11, Freestylers in Disguise. It's just going to fall off the screen because for some reason they wanted a real long name. I have no idea why, but I don't know what they're going to go. Now, are they going to go by Freestylers or are they going to go by Disguise when it comes down to it? I assume they would want to go by Disguise because it sounds cooler, but just Freestylers sounds kind of lame. But we'll see. And that, of course, is Karma, Sathu, and Nomad. They actually had a sub in the Astro tournament just the other day. I think they beat Genesis by forfeit. That's what I was hearing from Classics. But then they go on to lose to Energy with loss, and they had Subin in, who was, I believe, their 4th. And I think Nomad is the normal starter, unless they're changing things up, which is possible. But again, they have some decent results here or there. They were also in that gauntlet of a group in Take the Shot February, where they didn't qualify. They lost to Selfless 2-5, which was pretty rough. They had one really close set with them, and then just got 3-0'd in their second set. And again, that's one of those teams that you might be facing them in the lower bracket final. You're going to have to get some wins off them. But they beat Eggplant time and time again, so that's why I have them above Eggplant. They beat Eggplant 2-0 in that tournament. And then Rocket Royale, they also beat Eggplant 2-1. They got a little lucky and were placed in the top 8 because Iris didn't show up. So they got to play against some of these really good teams, but they didn't get any good results out of it. They did take some games off of these teams, which is a good start. It's much better than like if you get swept. Like if you get swept, it's not looking good for you at all. But if you at least take one game, then you know that can be replicated, and you can take multiple games and take a series. So G2, they lose 1-2. Genesis, they lose 1-2. And then Denial, they lost 0-2. So at least they're taking games off these top teams. We'll see if they can translate a couple more of those into wins and see if they can take a series. Like this is one of those teams that I could see in that winter semifinal, maybe making a surprise happen and pulling off a win. Then they beat Ineffable 2-1, Eggplant 2-1, and then they lose to Take 3 0-3. Again, the 0-3 is really, really hurt, but they are beating the teams below them pretty consistently. They just can't beat these top teams yet, but some of them, they're pulling off some wins, so I want to see what they're doing there. But once again, like Karma, she has some RLCS experience, not much, 2 weeks worth basically, and one was mid-season mayhem. But Sathu Nomad are both extremely good players as well, so they could be that surprise team that makes groups. Where we saw last time with like a team like Summit or a team like Deception. These guys are right in that spot that could easily create an upset and then have like one of those lower bracket finals be like two really good teams like Selfless and Vindicator last time, or Vendetta, I guess, at the time. So we'll see where they go from there. And we're moving on. Number 9. So number 9, we have Selfless. I have to say, they haven't looked good. They have not looked good whatsoever so far. Selfless was considered by me, at least, a top 3 team in NA before qualifiers of RLCS Season 2 with Miho, Dapper, and JNaps. And then they kind of just collapsed in the qualifier. So it was not pretty, but at the same time, they did have really tough games. They basically played the best team in Energy, or Kings of Urban at the time. And then they played Vendetta, who was considered to be like the 5th best team, like roughly, maybe 6th at the time. So they had a really, really tough bracket and didn't make it in. And then, of course, JNaps, he goes over to G2. Dapper and Miho actually split for a little while, trying out different teams, but they eventually wound up back together. Now, that could mean one of two things. No one else wanted Dapper or Miho, or they decided to come back together because they thought that worked better. I'm thinking it was a little bit of the other, where a lot of people tried out Dapper Miho and it just wasn't working. It's probably a mixture of both. But so Dapper Miho joined up again, and Pluto joins them as well. And again, Pluto tried out for some teams here or there, but really wasn't selected by anyone, it seemed like. So he goes to Selfless. It's still a pretty strong team. Like, these guys can easily make league play. Like, right now they're sitting just on the fringe, and they could definitely make it. But they just had a weekly where they lost to Atelier. Did I say Atelier? I think so. So they lost to them 3-2. It's really close between those two teams, but that's why I have them at number 9 mostly. But they lose to Genesis and Take the Shot February 9th place, 0-6. They got swept twice in a row, and that's really, really rough. They're going to have to find a way to beat teams like Genesis to make sure they make it in. And then they got Freestylers in disguise. They beat them 5-2 across 2 sets once again. Pretty close sets. One was 3-2, and then the other was 2-0, I believe. And but they are getting those wins. And then they didn't play in Rocket Royale. They didn't play in the Astro January. Take the Shot January because they weren't teams yet. And then Astro February. They didn't place well. They played Greasy a lot in Remco early on in the tournament and lost to them. It's not a bad loss, but some of these other American teams actually beat that team. So they just don't have the results to back anything up yet. I want to see more from them. I think some people might consider them a little bit higher, but they just haven't put up those results, and I just want to see them play more together. But at the same time, honestly, the highest I could see them going is like 6th, even at their best. I just don't think these guys are playing well enough right now. It seems like Miho and Dapper from last season, they played extremely well and either plateaued or maybe got complacent, and they don't seem to have that same polish as some of these other guys that keep growing and growing and growing. So we'll see if I'm wrong there, but right now, with the eye test, I'm just not liking Selfless all that much, and so we'll see where we go from here. All right. Next up, Atelier. I think I'm saying it right. Atelier. Either way, I don't want these guys making groups because I don't want to say their name all that much. But next up, we have Turtle, Matt, and Sizz. Again, we have Matt and Sizz coming over from Selfless, the old Selfless, A-Money's left and right sleeves. They've been playing together a really long time. Matt took a break with Sizz and went over to Vendetta for a bit as a sub at first, and then he turned out to be performing extremely well towards the end of the season, almost getting them to the LAN. But these guys, again, on paper, I'm not expecting much from them, but they have surprised me more than I thought they would. I thought they might be below like a team like Selfless, but they've put up some good results. Atelier? I don't think it's lie. Atelier? I don't know. Anyway, so Take the Shot January. They came in 5th. They are one of the longest rosters that didn't change in that like recent shuffle. they've been playing together a little bit more. So maybe they like playing together, which is always a great thing. Like personality clashes is a thing that can destroy teams. It might not destroy them right away, but throughout a season, it can destroy them. So, like if they do make it, I expect them to keep growing throughout the season compared to maybe some of these other teams where they start getting into a slump and then they start dropping even further and further down. So I'll give them that. But Take the Shot generated 5th place. They used Iris 3-2. That was a really close set, and also it didn't look like Iris was playing all that well, but that's what Iris does. Sometimes they play really well, sometimes they don't. Usually they don't play well, but they still get the win, and then they win the whole tournament, as we saw last night. So that was a pretty decent result from them. Then Take the Shot February, they got a 5th place. Trinity, they beat 5-3 in the qualifiers, and then they took out Take 3 3-1. Did they get 5th? They might have got 3rd. I'm not sure. I might be wrong there. I might have wrote down the wrong thing. Because if they beat Take 3 3-1, unless I have that backwards. Anyway, they didn't play in Rocket Royale. Now I'm starting to question my stuff. I think they did play Rocket Royale. I think I just didn't finish their stuff. Well, that's right. I have it right here. So we'll go over that real quick. Yeah, they did play Rocket Royale, where they beat Genesis. They lose to G2 0-2, and then they lost to Energy. I mean, losing to G2 and Energy isn't the worst thing in the world. They did beat Genesis, which is a big win. And again, like, they're getting bigger wins here and there. It's not consistent, but they are getting the wins off those top teams, and you only need to beat them once. So that's why, like, I thought on paper they would be worse. I thought they would be losing to Genesis more often, or would be losing to these other teams, but they're pulling out some wins. And then they go on into their group stage. They get a 3-0 over Heroes, 3-0 over Vertical, and then they get 3-0'd by Genesis. So that's kind of what I'm talking about with them, where they can show up here or there, but then they kind of fall flat once in a while, maybe when the other team's playing a little bit better. So we'll see. They're one of those teams that can move around a lot. Like, I could see them not making league play. I could see them doing pretty decently in league play, because I think all three have experience, and all three have a cool head behind them. So we'll see how that goes. But then they moved on and played Energy, lost 3-1, so they came in 5th there. And then I have the Take the Shot February results here too, so I'm going to look up that real quick because I think that was wrong. Let's see what we got here. Sorry. Messed up one of my things, you know? It's terrible. Oh, yeah, they lost to Take 3-1. That's what I thought. Okay. So they lost to Take 3-1. Again, they're pulling off some wins here or there versus these better teams, and they are beating the lower teams. I don't expect to see them lose to a super surprising team, because I think they have a lot of consistent results, but they played a much slower game. And I think once you pick up the speed on them, then they don't stand a chance, or at least they don't stand a chance as often. So I would be worried for them, but they are in at the 8th spot, and I could see them moving on to league play. It's probably one of those bottom of the barrel teams where they can make it, but once the speed cranks up, and if that team is on at the time, like say if Genesis is playing with speed but is also getting their shots in, then they're going to lose those series. But like Atelier will win here or there when that team is maybe not shooting as well, and they get on the counter attack and get some goals that way. I just don't see them playing as fast as some of these teams up ahead, so I don't expect too much from them. I could see league play, but I would never say, hey, they're going to make land. But again, like if they can just come in that top 6, they only have to win one series, so you never know. Next up is Denial. This is another one of those teams that I'm not a huge fan of. Not a huge contender for land, but again, they can come up with some surprising results. Take Shot January, they didn't exist. They're a newly formed team with Sad Jr. coming over, so we'll see how that goes there. But that's one thing with Sad Jr. is like he's been on a lot of teams, and they've always done really well. Sure, maybe at LAN he hasn't looked exceptionally good for Energy, but online he's always looked pretty decent. Towards the end of last season, he didn't look that great either then, but it's Sad Jr. You can't count him out. He's always been on a top team. He has the experience. He knows what to do. So I could see him carrying through with the leadership with Leth and Corrupted G. At the same time, Sed's not a huge talker. I wonder if he is going into a more of a leadership role here, but usually he's more of the like in the background type of guy. He doesn't really lead teams. Like on Cosmic, he wasn't really a leader. And then I would assume on Energy it was more Fireburner and Jacob. Probably mostly Fireburner. But so he hasn't really been a leader, but maybe this new role will help him out a lot. But we'll see what they can do with Denial. But Take the Shot February, they came in 5th. They lost to Iris 2-3, and that was with a sub with what the hell's his name? It's like Jay Wismont. Yeah, there we go. Jay Wismont. In for Sad because Sad was not allowed to play because of the sub rules. So they actually played pretty well playing Iris. But once again, that's what Iris does. They just are very inconsistent, but still pull out wins. And then they also beat Spectrum 3-1 to qualify for that tournament. Then we go over to Rocket Royale, where they had a really good finish. They came in 2nd place, but honestly, I think it was more because of the easy bracket that they got. They got a little bit lucky here, but at the same time, we'll see. They lost to Take 3 0-2. Baby's waking up. They beat Ohana 3-2, and Freestylers in Disguise 2-0. And then we had Soar. They beat 3-0, Nova 3-0. They lost to G2 0-7. And that is extremely rough. They lost to them in the finals, and they beat Eggplant 3-1. So, got a little bit of an easy bracket where they beat Ohana in the semis. They played Eggplant, but they did 3-0 Ohana at that point, but Ohana 2-0'd them before. So, we'll see where it goes. I think it was a little bit of an easy bracket for them. I don't expect them to be that high on results. And Giblet's waking up, so we'll see. We'll see if we can continue, but see how Giblet is. Maybe I'll set him up, so just give me 1 second after this. But, like, Denial, we'll see. We'll see what they do. I think they got an easy bracket in Rocket Royale that probably bumps them up a little bit. And then also in the Astro February, they came in 5th with where they beat Atelier, and they lost to G2 2-3. So they did play better versus G2 after getting 0-7 just a few days before. So that's an improvement. They also went into overtime, I think, twice or 3 times, something like that. So a lot closer. So they're still improving, as in all these teams are still improving. So I can see what goes on from here. But give me 1 second. All right, we'll continue while I hold Giblet. Might be a little bit harder to do, but that's fine. Who's a good boy? All right. Next up, we got Ohana coming in. Yes, I know. And no one's really talking about Ohana, I feel like. I feel like that's partially, like, I'm not talking about them as much either, but they're looking pretty decent. Moses, Darkfire, and Hot Wheels Sid coming in. Like, I am glad that they changed up rosters, because at first it was when Darkfire, like, it was Darkfire, Sid Jr., and Classics, and I was like, this team is never going to work for Take the Shot. I think January it was, and it's because they're all way more ball chasey or way more aggressive. Darkfire is definitely known to be a little bit ball chasey, which is not the end of the world. Like, sometimes he goes for some weird plays because he's usually the offensive player. But Moses is known as one of the best back lines in North America, and Hot Wheels Sid is also a very solid player. So this team could do well. Like, I think they mesh pretty well together. We'll see how they do. But Take the Shot February, they came in 5th, losing to Energy 1-3. And then Rocket Royale, they had a pretty good finish as well. They lost to Energy 1-5 though, which is tough. Like, I feel like there's a gap going on where right below Energy, there's a lot of mix-up. But once you hit the Energy, G2 Iris of Echelon, it gets really tough for these teams. They lost to Denial 2-3 across 2 different sets. And then they lost to Genesis 3-4 and beat Spectrum 2-1. So honestly, they didn't have like amazing results, but they did get a little bit of an easy bracket, or they won games where they needed to, and pulled it out. But I expect them to do pretty decently. Like, I could see them being one of those teams that like as they grow, I think they have a lot of room for improvement compared to maybe some of these other teams. Like I think they could start off in league play as like, they might make playoffs, and then like, whoa, they're like the third seed or something coming out. Like I could see them improving that much. We'll see if that holds true. But then Astro February, they came in third place. They beat Penta Aces, which is always good. Pashy, Freaky, and Killer No. And then they lose to Iris 2-3. Again, Iris didn't look great that series, but Ohana did play well. Like, it wasn't all about Iris not playing well in that series. Like, I felt like Ohana was doing pretty well throughout that. So, this is one of those results where I'm like, all right, they're getting some growth here, and I could see them continually to grow and move up the ladder throughout league play. All right, so we'll move on. Next up, this one might be a little controversial. I have Genesis at number 5. I think some people might have them at number 4 over Take-3. And honestly, their results might warrant it, but through the eye test, like I just think Take-3 is a better team. Like I think, say the bracket works out and 4 and 5 play each other, which would be Take-3. Then we could see a really good matchup here, but I think Take-3 would beat Genesis, like in that heads-up game. But let's get into it. Take the Shot January didn't exist for them. Take the Shot February, third place. They beat G2 3-1, which is their big result. No one's really beaten G2 besides Iris, so that's a huge result, and that's why I think a lot of people would probably bump them up to 4th. But I don't know. I just didn't want to do it. And then Energy, again, losing 3-0. It seems like that tier, like once you hit the Energy level, sure, like they did beat G2 3-1, but losing 3-0 to Energy is not great. So they kind of bounce right back, like after showing some promise, bouncing right back. Energy put them in their place, like, nah, kid, there's still a little bit of a gap here. And Energy coming out 3-0. Then we move on. We have Rocket Royale. They came in 5th place, beating Atelier. And Freestylers in Disguise, they beat Atelier 4-2. Freestylers in Disguise 2-1. Ohana 4-3. Vertical Sleep 3-0. Heroes 3-0. So they beat every single team they played. It's just it worked out like in the brackets that they lost when it mattered the most. So we'll see if they can change that. It could have just been one fluky loss. Who knows? And then Astro February, 9th place, losing to Freestylers in Disguise. But I think they got DQ'd for that. But these guys were known as Toxic Waste beforehand, which was Classics, Chrome, and Insolences. So we'll see how they do. A lot of people consider them to be a younger team that might be a little bit more like hard on their sleeves, where things might get to them a little bit more, but at the same time, that could breed a lot of confidence when they're playing well. So we'll see how that works out for them. I could see them easily making land, for sure. They're definitely one of those teams that when they're hot, watch out for them. A lot of people are not going to give them credit. Like I think the casual fan might look at the roster and be like, I'm not really sure about them. But Chrome's been playing really, really well throughout this offseason. Insolences as well. He's not invited to 6-mans, but he can definitely beat all those 6-man players. So we'll see how it goes in Classics. Didn't have a great season, I felt like, last season. It could have been more of just team chemistry or what his role in the team was. I want to see more of him this season and pick up the pace a little bit more. I think he can do that on this team, and I think it'll work out pretty well for them, but who knows? We'll see. We'll see. All right, next up, we got Take-3, which we just talked about a little bit, but Take-3 coming in. New roster, as always. And Giblet is trying to grab the pop filter like crazy. I'd probably just give him the pop filter. Here you go. Yes, eat the pop filter so Daddy can finish here. All right. So Take-3 now is Zane, Jackie, Espion, and Vince. And Vince is one of my favorite players. He played extremely well last season with Deception. And at first it looked like he wasn't really going to get on a great team. A lot of people were passing him by, which I would say that players are definitely ones to see what talent looks like first before even like analysts or anything like that, because they have to play with them time and time again. Like when you play with someone, it's a lot easier to see like how the talent is. And I will never say like, oh, I know better than the players do, because I think players know pretty damn well. I think sometimes they get it wrong, but we all get it wrong. So like I'm really excited to see Vince in this team, and we'll see how they do. But here's some results. Take the Shot January 3rd place, but that was when Insolences was still on the team. with Vince. And then we had Take the Shot February with the new team, third place, beating Atelier, and then losing to Iris 1-3. So again, we see the big three getting these wins time and time again. So gotta watch out. But then Rocket Royale was the weirdest result I've seen from them, and this is like one of those hot and cold streaks type of scenarios where they start out in the Swiss format in the top 8 and 3-0, beating Denial, Energy, and G2. And then they go on to play in their groups, lose to Eggplant, and then lose to Ineffable, and then beat Freestylers in Disguise 3-0, thankfully, which still got them through, but they did go in as the second place in their group, had to play G2 in the first round, and then got 3-0'd. So they started out extremely hot in that tournament, and it kind of shows that Take-3 can be hot and cold at times as well. But I think I confused that for a little bit with Genesis. But anyway, Take-3, hot and cold for right now. We'll see if they can get that a little bit more consistent. But they shouldn't be losing to teams like Eggplant and Ineffable. Those are the teams that they have to watch out for in the qualifiers. Like, this is one of those teams that I could see them not qualifying, like, if they keep getting results like this, where they can beat the top teams, but then they can lose to these like top 15 teams, which is not a good scene for Take-3. They're probably not happy with that Rocket Royale at all. And I hope they're practicing a lot for this week, because that can easily happen again in that first week, best of threes. You never know who you're going to play, because you can only rank so deep. So Take-3's got to watch out. Espeon doesn't want to pull another Genesis where they lose in week number 1 in the qualifiers. And then they had Astro February. They came in 9th. They lost to Greasy a lot in Remco. Not much to be said there. It's 3 really good Europe players, but some of the American teams did beat those teams, so they should be able to put up some better results there. Moving on. We got the big 3, and I think there's a big gap here between Take-3 and NRG. Because like Energy is just so consistently average at their third spot. They're so consistently third, I feel like. They beat Iris, I think, in 1 weekly, where they played really well. But besides that, they've been getting smacked around by G2 and Iris for the most part, but then they just smack around everyone else below them. So they are consistently third, for sure. I think their gameplay results in, like they picked up Garrett, which is a big move, but a big move. Sorry, I'm getting flustered with the giblet. But then they didn't play a lot. Like, they didn't play a lot of tournaments for a while. They played in, like, the big ones, but they weren't playing a ton. They weren't practicing a ton. And I think players kind of caught up to them really, really quickly. And also, Energy's playstyle is kind of a more slow pace. Like, hey, we're going to give them the ball for a little bit, but then we'll just play well on the defensive end. And that doesn't really work anymore. We saw with Precision Z during the LAN, they just let Precision Z have the ball, and then Precision Z made plays when they had the ball, and that's why Energy lost. And then Take-3 plays Precision Z, and you see Zane Jackie just going crazy on them, being extremely aggressive, coming back from the back, not allowing them to have time, and then Take-3 gets the win. And I think Energy has to play a little bit more aggressive when the other team has the ball. They just have to figure out when that is the correct time to do it. But they just haven't been looking like the team that we thought we might see as one of the best in North America. But they're still putting up some results, just not top 2 results. Take the Shot January, they came in 5th. They lost to Take-3, 0-3, but that was when it was Espeon, Zane, and Insolences. Take the Shot February, we had a second place where they beat Ohana and they beat Genesis 3-1, 3-0, and then they lose to Iris 0-4. So they are showing that they can kind of dominate the teams below them, but once you hit that extreme speed of Iris or G2, they just can't keep up. And then Rocket Royale, they beat Ohana again, 5-1 across 2 different sets. They lose to Take-3, 1-2. They beat Atelier, 5-1, and then Spectrum 2-1. So once again, those teams are on the 7th, 8th spots. They just kind of manhandle, but They did lose to Take 3, 1-2. It's a best of 3, and like that's gonna happen. Take 3 is a really good team, but for the most part, Energy does take care of business around this level, and they don't get losses below that probably 4th to 5th spot. So that's really important for qualifiers because I don't expect them to have to worry too much. They'll probably get the 3 seed at least, so they should be fine to make it in through the upper bracket. But then they would have to play like a team. It would probably be the 6th seed of Ohana, and they've beaten Ohana 8-2 in the 2 most recent tournaments that were big tournaments that they played in. And then, of course, they have Astro in January. They lost to Mocket 1-3. And, but like Mocket's a Europe team. I don't know what there is too much to say with that. And then they lose to G2 0-3 in just last night. They did not look like they were on the same level as G2. They looked extremely flat, and that's how they've been looking, that they like to play their controlled game, and I want to see them pick up the pace just a little bit more, try and get a little bit more passing plays in. Like, I know they can do it with Jacob, Fire, and Garrett. And Garrett, it was weird. Like, last night while watching, he had, like, 2 terrible clears in Game 1 back-to-back, but then made 2 solo goals. So, I think they got to clean up their defense. It seemed like they were just trying to throw out the clear. Like, they didn't care about trying to pass out the clear to make it a more effective clear. They just wanted it out of their zone, and it didn't really work out. So we'll see if they can pick it up. I expect to see them continually grow, but I don't know if they can match the speed of Iris or G2. So, moving on. With the Giblet, we're almost done. We're almost done there, Giblet. Almost done. Then you can eat your oatmeal. Number 2, we got Iris. So Iris coming off a huge result last night, beating G2 4-3. My main problem with Iris is just inconsistency. They haven't been as bad as they were, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago, where they were starting to lose to teams like in that 8-11 range. Now they're beating those teams, but barely, 3-2 usually. And they usually look terrible on stream the first time you see them, or they're just not connecting on their offensive plays. And then they just won't get shots at all. And then they'll come back and win a game 7-0. So they're one of those teams, when they're at their best, I think they are the best team in North America. But they don't play at their best that often. So it's going to be extremely questionable to see how they play. And, of course, there's Squishy Mushrooms, Lachino, and Torment. And they've been a team the longest by far in North America. And I honestly think that if Iris plays well, we could easily see the Squishy Muffins get an MVP of the regular season for sure. He's been playing phenomenally on that team, and even Giblet thinks so. He's happy. He's happy about Squishy Muffins. Like he's a star for sure, and I think this season is gonna be his breakout appearance, I guess you would say. Like a lot of people know him, but casuals don't know him as much. But Squishy, phenomenal player. So we'll see how they do. But take the shot, January. Beaten Atelier 3-2, Selfless 3-0, losing to G2 2-3. And of course, they usually play G2 pretty close. And then they go take the shot February, first place, Denial 3-2, but that was when they had a sub. They barely won that series, but then they just kind of dominated the rest of the way. Take 3-1, and Energy 4-0. Whenever you get a 4-0, that's a statement for sure. And I'm pretty sure Iris is happy where they are, especially after beating G2, but I just think G2 is a little bit more consistent. They didn't play Rocket Royale, which was sad, and G2 wound up taking that win. Who knows if Iris was there? But then in January, they played the Astro January. They lost to Mocket for 5th place. And then in February, which was just last night, they beat Ohana 3-2, had a battle back. They were down 2-1, not getting a lot of shots for 2 games in a row. And then just piled on the goals. And that's what Iris does. They're extremely good on the offensive side. Sometimes they're shaky on defense. They can play a phenomenal defense game. Like, I felt like in the G2 series, it was very similar to when iBuyPower Cosmic played Flipside, where Iris was just going off on the defensive end, and G2 was throwing shot after shot. Probably not the most quality shots every single time, but Iris was stopping all of them and getting the wins, because G2 definitely outshot them throughout that series, I'm pretty sure. So they beat G2 4-3, and Iris can easily come out as the number 1 seed, but I'm a little worried about them. throughout league play. Like, I feel like their inconsistent play might get them a couple extra losses that they probably don't want, and that could hurt them for a chance at a bye. We'll see if they can polish that up. I believe they can, and I think they'll still win those series. Like, even when they are playing poor, they still seem to come out on top against these top 8 teams, except for maybe a G2 or something here or there. But I expect them to get the bye along with G2, who is my number 1 team right now. They're just playing extremely, extremely well. They don't generally lose a series at all, except to Iris. Except for the past week or so, or the past 2 weeks, they've looked a little bit worse than what they were just at. They've kind of come down a little bit. Throughout Rocket Royale, they had a lot of 2-1 set wins versus lower teams, which is troubling with Soar, Nova, and Freestylers. They beat them all 2-1, which, once again, like if you lose to one of these teams, that can happen 2 more times, and you could lose a set. So I wouldn't say G2 is a complete lock for league play. Like, obviously, like, I think they will make it, but it has been some questionable results here or there lately. But Rocket Royale first place, Take 3, beating them 4-2, Denial 7-0, and Energy 3-1. Take the Shot January first place, beating Denial 3-0, Take 3, 3-2, Iris 3-2. Take the Shot February, they came in 5th, losing to Genesis 3-1. Then Astro January, another first place, beating Atelier 3-2. They also beat them in Rocket Royale 2-0. And beaten Mocket 3-1, the only American team to beat that European powerhouse at the time. And then Astro February, second place, which was just last night, beaten Denial 3-2 with some overtimes on there. And then Energy, they dominated them 3-0, losing to Iris 3-4 in the finals. And G2 is really, really strong. You see all their places, first place, second place, and a 5th. They get consistent results, but that Genesis loss is going to be a little worrying for them. And then those 2-1s against Soar, Nova, and Freestylers is a little bit concerning. But they are by far the best passing team in North America right now. They're also by far the best demo team and the one that takes the most demolition chances. Like, you see it time and time again. Rizzo or Crow generally just going through the net and trying to take out whoever they can and giving a free shot for JNaps or whoever at the time. One of my main concerns is Rizzo. So last season, I wasn't a big fan of him. I thought he wasn't playing that well, and I think he's improved a ton. But there's still one major flaw in his play, and that's that third rotation challenge. When he's the last one back, we saw this a lot last year with Take 3, where he will go up for a challenge that he should not be going up for, and then it's an easy win for the other team and right into a wide open net. And we saw it again last night, where I think there was 2 or 3 times in that series of versus Iris where he just goes up for a challenge that he should not be going up for. He's way too far behind, and then Squishy or Lachino just get it over him, and then it's a wide open net. So I think he's got to clean that up a bit, maybe be a little bit more patient and worry more about trying to waste time instead of trying to keep the ball in the offensive end. That's been a flaw of his game for the past 2 seasons at least, since I've been following him extremely closely. So we'll see if he can clean that up, but he's improved a ton on the offensive end as well, and G2 just looks really scary. JNaps might be the best player on that team. He's looked extremely good. And this whole offseason was the G2 sweepstakes. It was basically, Crow, who do you want on your team? Because you can basically get anyone except for Energy or Iris players. And he chose really, really well. He had JNaps as his number 2 for a really long time while they were trying out a third, which was a really smart play because JNaps has been phenomenal. And then they finally landed on the Rizzo after lots of tryouts. And it's a really solid squad. They're a team that could probably compete with some of these European teams. The way they pass has been a lot more effective. Giblets, like, we're about to be done. This is it. So we'll see. But honestly, I'm a huge fan of JNaps. I could easily see him getting an MVP type season as well. I think it's going to be between him and Squishy Muffins for the MVP for the whole season. He plays phenomenally. But you can't count on Crow, obviously. Crow is a phenomenal player. He knows how to pick teammates. He is such a nuisance on the offensive end and can play amazing defense, as we saw last night as well. The Konovi factor is extremely strong, and I have a joke for JNaps, but I think I'm going to save it because I'm supposed to do an interview with him soon. You know what? We'll throw it out here. So we have basically the Mountain, the Meme Lord, and then we don't have a nickname for JNabs. So we need an M nickname for JNabs, and I thought it'd be fantastic if we just called him Mediocre JNabs. Just because all the casuals will probably not realize how good he is, and then we would have the Mountain, the Meme Lord, and the Mediocre player on G2. So that's JNabs in a nutshell. Very, very underrated, and he's a beast, and I hope to see him do extremely well throughout the season. And yeah, but that'll do it for these power rankings, guys. Let me know what you think on the YouTube comments. We'll see it in Twitch here a little bit. I didn't really talk to Twitch that much, sorry, but I was trying to hold Giblet and not make him cry because I wanted to get through this all the way. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I thought it was fun. And yeah, let me know where I was wrong, because every single spot was wrong, obviously. And Giblet says hi, and we'll show Giblet for a second. But this will do it for the YouTube section. Thanks for watching. Leave some comments. Let us know what you think, who's going to make it, and we'll see how terribly wrong I am after these next 2 weeks of RLCS. So we'll see you later. And now we got the Giblet.